The Mannin Line, daily interaction, debate and exchange of ideas. Broadcast on Manx Radio from midday till 1, Monday to Friday. Manx Radio.
Bye. Good afternoon. Welcome to Manx Radio and Mannin Line. Your public radio forum, open line through till 1 today, whatever you want to say. And call 66 13 68, text 166 177, WhatsApp 166 177, email studio@manxradio.com. So it's 2 weeks next Thursday, or if you want 3 weeks ago, as yesterday, that single-use plastic's going to be outlawed on the Isle of Man. It happens in Britain, I think it's this coming Sunday, isn't it? Firms in the UK have said they're not aware of a ban in England on single-use plastic cutlery plates and polystyrene trays. Well, it comes into force on Sunday. The ban over there doesn't extend to plastic containers and trays used in takeaways or to pre-packaged food in shops, so it's a bit confusing. I'm sure we'll have it all sorted out by 2 weeks next Thursday. What do you think? And just to reiterate what Christian was saying in the news about the Isle of Man creamery butter. Comments have been spreading, get it, about the butter as well. A post on Facebook said that having no foil cover under the lid of spreadable butter was unhygienic. Well, it's not. The creamery said the foil paper was just there to basically separate the lid from the butter, but obviously they want to help reduce packaging and make sure it's recyclable, so that is the reason. And it tastes pretty well, it did this morning when I had some on a toasted tea cake anyway. Thanks for that. Text, email, call and WhatsApp. Remember, on Monday, so if you want to get a question in over the weekend, we're talking education, sport and culture with the Education, Sport and Culture Minister, Julie Edge, MHK, who will be in to take your calls and comments about her portfolio as well, anything else, because of course she is a member of COMIN. By all means, do get in touch. And what do you think about this situation with Tim Glover, who's been talking about the situation regarding the steam packet? Now, this may be a storm in a teacup, although if you work for Steam Packet, if you're in the Nautilus Union, they take it very seriously at the moment. Steam Packet says that they're not, Brian Thompson, the managing director, said they're not going to agree to preferential treatment for members represented by Nautilus. So, what do you think about this? Nautilus claims its members have been threatened with fire and rehire if they don't accept changes to their working conditions. We understand they've been asked to live on board for 2 weeks at a time. The union claims it means staff will lose 83 days per year from their loved ones on shore. Nautilus reckon the steam packet is, their words are, dishonest, saying it hasn't entered into negotiations in good faith and has refused independent arbitration. The steam packet says returning to a live-on-board model is the one addition it wishes to make to new terms and conditions. Brian Thompson, managing director, says agreement's been already reached with the other union, whose members in various roles represent 70% of the seagoing staff. This is about 3 out of 10 people represented by Nautilus. Mr. Thompson says, I hope it means there's an opportunity to resolve the situation amicably, but what we will not do is to agree preferential treatments for members of one union over those of another who have already agreed and are working hard on behalf of the company. So, you got any thoughts? Text, email, call and WhatsApp regarding the steam packet and what on earth is going to happen. The Nautilus said that industrial action is an option, and Tim Glover, the Arbury Castle Town and Maloo MHK, says this could damage the Isle of Man's reputation.
I just do not like the whole concept of the employment practice, as it's known, of firing people and then asking them to reapply with different terms and conditions. I think any contract between an employer and employee is a two-way street. But also, I've been contacted by constituents and indeed some employees of the steam packet company.
What is the feeling like on the ground?
A lot of frustration, a lot of worry, a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of, from what I gather, temporary crew at the moment on the steam packet, particularly the Manxmen, but these are the senior officers of the company. They play an integral role, which is under threat.
What do you think would be the way forward?
To get this resolved amicably. They are asking for a massive change in lifestyle. The steam packet doesn't have to just follow other conventions just for the sake of it. But I wait to hear what the steam packets say. I'm yet to understand what the advantages are of having the officers on a shift which involves staying on the ship.
Tim Glover talking about this situation, and Tim Glover also said it reminded him of the conflict in the UK when P&O sacked a number of crew last year. Just wonder what your thoughts are regarding that. Mark's on now. Hi, Mark.
All right, mate. How you doing?
Good, thanks. Yeah, it's Friday.
It is Friday, isn't it? Isn't it about time somebody gave a little bit of praise to the steam packet?
Yes.
Right, I'm an ex-merchant seaman, Andy. I spent 20-odd years in the Merchant Navy, so I know all about living on board and watch keeping and stuff like that. Reading between the lines and reading about everything that's been going on, it seems that the steam packet, for some bizarre reason, have let Nautilus, the union, who, when I was in the Merchant Navy, they were called the National Union of Seamen, and they were so militant, it was ridiculous. I eventually said I didn't want to be part of them because they were so militant. But, when I was in the Merchant Navy, I went away 6 months, 7 months at a time, but then I'd get a month's leave, then I'd be back again. So in a typical year, I'd have 4 weeks holiday. Now, they're getting every other week off. I can't see what they're moaning about, just because they've got to stay on board instead of being able to go home when the ship docks in the Isle of Man overnight. I just do not see what the problem is.
How do you think Mr. Thompson's handling this?
He could do better. The reason you have arbitration is because one side is trying to outsmart the other side, or one side is being belligerent against the other side. So arbitration is definitely the way to go forward in this. But having said that, I can understand why he's sticking to his guns. You've got a brand new ship there. You've got the officers, who are a different union to the Seamen's Union. You've got them, who their unions agreed. You've got Unison, who look after the catering staff and what have you. Their unions agreed. It only seems to be Nautilus, who look after the seaman side of things, that are being militant. And I don't quite get the problem with it. They've always done watch keeping. You do 4 to 8, 8 to 12, 12 to 4. So you do a typical seaman will do 2 watches a day. And then the rest of the time he's off, except when the ship's tying up and let him go, then he's working again. But he gets paid extra for that. And I just cannot understand why they are preparing to go on strike and potentially lose their jobs over 7 days, because that's all the difference is 7 days. Instead of getting something like, I think it was 83 days holiday a year, days off a year, they're actually getting 76 days off a year. When I was in the Merchant Navy, if somebody said to me, you'll be getting needing enough 2.5 months off every year, I'd be snatching their hand off, because when I was away, I'll be lucky to get 3 weeks away at home.
Is this a storm in a teacup? Do you think it's going to blow over?
What I think it is I think that Nautilus have decided that steam packet have paid so much for the new ferry. They were ripped off with the new ferry. There's no doubt about it. Everybody in the industry says they paid way over the odds for that ferry. They are still, at the moment, they're still being held to ransom by Peel Holdings in Liverpool. And I just think Nautilus have thought, right, well, while they're distracted by all this, that and the other, let's get our claim in, because we can sidetrack everything. Because if we start saying this and we start saying that and demanding this and demanding that, the government might then step in, and that's what they're wanting. They are wanting our Council of Ministers to step in and say, right, get this sorted now. And they shouldn't have to do that, because, okay, we own the steam packet, the Isle of Man government owns the steam packet, the taxpayer owns the steam packet, but it is still a semi-autonomous company.
And that's the point, isn't it? Brian Thompson he's the managing director. He's in charge. The buck stops on his desk. He has to run the company bluntly as he sees fit.
Exactly. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, say for argument's sake, Andy, they turn around to you tomorrow and says, Andy, you're a very decent fella. You know what you do, and we want you to run the steam packet. But if you run it badly, the buck stops with you, and you don't get your pension, you get sacked, you get vilified in the press. Are you man enough to take all the abuse that's going to be thrown at you in return for a decent salary? You'd say no. The guy who's running the steam packet said, yes, I can take all this, and I know exactly how to do this, how to run this company, and I'm going to run it, and I'm going to run it as best as I can. And now he's got 3 unions, 2 have accepted the terms, and 1, as I said at the start of this conversation, was such a militant bunch of people. I left, they were that bad, and I haven't seen any change in them. They are literally trying to hold the Isle of Man, the people of the Isle of Man to ransom by saying, right, if we can't have what we want, if we don't get preferential treatment, we're not going to sail this ship and you will not get your stock and supplies. And that is not right. So I applaud the guy for sticking to his guns.
Okay, all right, Mark, thanks for that.
You're welcome, mate.
Cheers. Now it's 18 minutes past 12 on Manx Radio. Beth dropped a note in just to say residents in Pulrose have been contacting the DOI for DOI adopted roads in Pulrose to have better restrictions in place for overnight motorhome and large commercial vehicles parking in the area due to the increase in large work vans and motorhomes that are parking there. Beth said, I've got some photos I'd like to share with you to show the extent of the problem. It's affecting residents struggling to find a parking space. It actually causes arguments. And we've recently started to have a new issue where people park their cars in Pulrose in the morning, then either get the bus or walk to work in central Douglas. Some residents believe that permits or disc zones would help in Pulrose. In Oak Avenue, it's lethal, so the best word, lethal for motorhomes and large work vans. Painters and decorators are the main culprit. There's been 2 motorhomes in Oak Avenue, despite signage prohibiting motorhomes, which the council won't do anything about. And residents have been complaining for over 3 years now. The Oak Avenue car park is owned by Douglas Council. Residents are asking for restrictions on certain vehicles, removing the weight limit and base it on height and length, and better enforcement in council car parks, and restricting residents from parking more than 1 vehicle per person to help tackle climate change. If you're in Pulrose, just give us an update on that. That's I got a note in from Beth. That's a little under a week ago. She dropped the note in to me. And the parking in Pulrose, lots of motorhome. We come back to motorhomes again. I have to say, we're not anti-motorhome. We're just probably against inconsiderate parking. But large work vans. There's also a question regarding large work vans and companies that operate fleets of vans. And the question as to why the company doesn't have a compound where people can drive to work, park their vehicle, use a work van all day, and then take the work van back to the compound and drive home in a car rather than driving big vans, taking the van home, as it were, and saving the employer the trouble of having to have a compound to park their vans. We're back to parking again. It's going to keep on with us. It will be on with us for a long time to come, because certainly the use of vehicles will continue to be contentious on the Isle of Man as we head towards our green and sustainable future. Thank you, Malcolm, who said, what were you talking about, Jim Steinman, yesterday? It wasn't me, Malcolm, it was Wayne from Ballasalla who dropped me a note in just to say, you mentioned that Vangelis is the answer with albedo 0.39. Well, Jim Steinman is the answer. If you're a Meatloaf fan, the 3rd single from the album Bat Out of Hell 2, Back Into Hell it is, and the line goes, and if life is a highway, then the soul is just a car, and objects in the rearview mirror may appear closer than they are. Is it too early for philosophy on a Friday lunchtime. I'll remember that, Wayne. Thank you for that. Objects in the rear view mirror may appear closer than they are. Mandy said there seem to be a lot of new people in Manx Care. How many new people are there? Friday is one of our question and answer days. Mandy, I'll tell you. Well, the DHSC's got a new chief officer. It came at the end of August. His name is Paul Richardson. He's the new chief officer of the DHSC. Former Deputy Director of Strategy for the UK Department of Health and Social Care and an Incident Director in the UK response to the COVID-19 pandemic. He is the Chief Officer, obviously will work with the Minister of Health and Social Care, Laurie Hooper. I think the people you're referring to in Manx Care are non-executive directors. They actually appeared earlier on this summer. Charlie Orton is a non-executive director, and Kate Lancaster is the other one. She's a non-exec director. I think she's chief exec of the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. Charlie Orton is chief exec of the UK Smart Recovery, a charity organisation that delivers training. So they're the two new people in Manx Care, or on the board of Manx Care, Charlie Orton and Kate Lancaster. And Paul Richardson is the newbie at the DHSC. So, where are we regarding the steam packet? Where are we regarding the hospital as well? The hospital, of course, has many issues, and also in terms of money, Manx Care is constantly running over budget. That's nothing new. It always did run over budget. The DHSC used to run over budget. So where do we get to that in the future, and what are your thoughts on that? Yesterday, let's get right back down to earth, we were talking about toilets and the provision of public toilets. It goes along with the promenade lights and the scoreboard. We need public toilets at the main Douglas bus stop. Again, says Kelly, lots of people asking for this. I can't remember why we put up with this for so long, why there are no loos by what is the main bus stop in Douglas, if you like, the biggest bus stop in the Isle of Man. The nearest public loos are the sea terminal. I mean, they're not miles away, but it's no hop, skip and jump. They are quite a way away. So we'll continue to find out where the underground car parks, the underground toilets used to be. There used to be underground toilets under the Villa Marina on the Broadway side, also underground toilets over by Little Switzerland. Where were the underground toilets by Little Switzerland? And lots of people lamenting the fact that Moore's Kipper, the smokery, if you like, in Peel is going, and also Morgan's Pies are having to close as well. Businesses which are disappearing from the Isle of Man, and I suppose that comes back to the marketplace, and the marketplace is something that is sometimes derided as nowadays. Some people look down on the marketplace and say that, you know, because we went through COVID and everything got answered by government money, i.e. public money, that the marketplace, you know, things shouldn't be left to the marketplace. Well, the marketplace isn't really a new invention. I got a message in from Margaret who said, Andy, with these various businesses and certainly some restaurants that are disappearing, flourishing free enterprise is what will generate higher standards of living at every level on the Isle of Man, and we shouldn't forget that. The jobs which people need will be created by a flourishing free enterprise economy. If we can, and then we can say we're honestly enjoying the benefits of freedom. Free enterprise will get us out of this. The market, says Margaret, isn't a newfangled invention. It's not been invented by academic economists. The market is the oldest trading organisation known to man. The marketplace will get us out of this. So when we talk about getting extra people to the Isle of Man, putting more people into paying income tax, we're talking about the marketplace, says Margaret. And maybe some of our politicians should concentrate on that fact. Government will not get us out of the problems that we have. They can help, but we have to rely on people starting businesses and employing peoples. Howard's on now. Hi, Howard.
Hi, Andy. just in reference to the toilets you asked on the Queen's Promenade. They were just about opposite the Queen's Hotel. There's still a building there. It's a new building when the iris system was put in. I think part of it's a pumping house. But also there's another one of the retention tanks there under the walkway. But, the toilets are quite rightly so. You went down 2 flights of stairs, steps down into the toilet area. And they were open to the world in a sense, and they were locked up in the winter. But that was, the Douglas Corporation used to look after them. And the same with the ones at the bottom of Broadway. And now I'd forgotten about them because I don't know, they've been open for a long, long time. Because there used to be a little garden there, and they just went in alongside the railings at the back end of the gate at the Villa Marina, and they went again downstairs, down steps into them. So the Isle of Man, Douglas itself, was pretty well supplied with toilets, but nowadays, well, they're few and far between.
I'm trying to remember, when did the attendant disappear in the the loos in the Villa Marina Arcade? There used to be attendants, didn't there?
They did, but they went, I would imagine it'd be 20 years ago. Another economy drive. But there's another, I don't know if they're still there, where the Villiers Yard used to be, as we call it, the back of that big bird cage. I think there's a set of toilets in there. I think. There used to be. They were always there, ladies and gents. And then they used to spend a penny, but I don't know what it is these days. But there was a set of toilets in there coming up Victoria Street. But as this chap said yesterday, apparently, he'd do a book about the facilities.
I'm sure there was one. There was a UK one, certainly, about the best public loos in Britain.
Well, the best public loo is one that's there when you need it.
Yes, that's true. And open as well, yeah.
And open, yes.
Okay.
But yes, the ones there was, as I say, there was the Bear Pit. There was the one at the Villa Marina Arcade. There was one at the Villa Marina. And, of course, well, I don't know, there probably were a few more along the promenade, but don't forget we had an awful lot more people walking and holiday makers down there then. Now you drive past most of them.
Yeah. Okay, all right, thanks,
okay,
Howard.
Take care.
That's
Bye.
a very good point, actually. 35,000 deck chairs used to be issued on Douglas Promenade, and, of course, many on Peel and Ramsey and Port Erin and Port St Mary's, so you did need lots more public loos in those days, but it is a mark of civilised society. Here's 692 just says the old TT scoreboards were in a reasonable condition. The metalwork was what was shot on the old TT scoreboard. What does a ban on single-use plastics actually mean, says David H. I presume that their sale is illegal. Not that one will be arrested for using old plastic bags. It's interesting. It is 2 weeks next Thursday when single-use plastics will be banned on the Isle of Man. You just wonder, what's the sanction? What will happen? Who's going to be the first person to be prosecuted for issuing single-use plastics? Of course, they get into the ecosystem, poison trees, so single-use plastics are, of course, are big trouble for all of us. But this has been happening for 70 and more years. When plastics first started to be issued and used by people, of course, plastic bags replaced paper bags. When would that be? Late 70s into the 80s, when supermarkets were issuing paper bags. And I don't know whether you read, there was an article in the past couple of days about microplastics now being found in rain. Tiny, tiny particles of microplastics. And remember, a couple of weeks ago, we had Saharan sand that was being transmitted to the Isle of Man through the atmosphere, and we were rained down on by Saharan sand inside raindrops. Now, microplastics are smaller than some grains of sand, so they get into rain. It's possible, the article I read said that some of the microplastics were actually effectively seeding clouds and causing rain because of that. And we've had 70 years of plastics going into the ocean. So when you think that some weather systems can suck up millions of gallons of water from oceans around the world, the plastics will be going into the atmosphere and will be raining down on us. This is a problem that we don't really know the state of. We don't really know what's going to happen. And 775 said, it's not a surprise that I hear the worrying news from Manx bird wildlife. I've contacted DEFRA also about draining off the wetlands and criminal damage to the ecosystem. Deaf ears at the moment. This is the situation regarding the possible loss of species on the Isle of Man. Lots of contributory factors, but certainly the one I read the other day about microplastics getting into rain and into rain clouds, certainly it's something new. It's very worrying. But remember, you may have heard Bill Dale saying our beaches are nowhere near as polluted with plastic as they used to be. And remember, the plastic pollution comes down two ways. It comes down from drains in our systems going down into the rivers and going down to sea, but also it comes from marine, if you like, marine commerce. What I'm trying to say is ships throwing plastic overboard when they go up and down the Irish Sea. It's about plastic coming down the River Liffey and Dublin and washing up on our shores. Plastic is absolutely everywhere. How are you going to get rid of it? Heaven knows, because it's been happening for 70-odd years. We put a lot less in than other countries, and certainly China and India, you'll see rivers of plastic, literally rivers of plastic going down the Ganges, going down the Yangtze River into those seas. Quite what we can do about it, nobody knows. At what point is the government or whichever department going to realise that the sea terminal is the obvious place for the bus station? It's already built, has all the necessary facilities and is very much underutilised. It's no further to walk from Marks and Spencer. Also, nearly all the buses go past it already. It's just common sense, says Peter. Have a great weekend. Thank you, Peter. Now, I think somebody asked a question a wee while ago. When was the last time the buses actually swung around in front of the sea terminal? Did there used to be bus terminus there, or was it just bus stops? But an interesting point, and certainly as the Middlemarch site is going to be built on, what is going to happen with the old Lord Street bus station? I just listened to the new members for the Manx Care Board, says KP. At the moment, our care system is terrible. I checked in with Nobles yesterday regarding a booking that was booked 3 weeks ago by the GP, a routine booking above 2 years waiting time. So much for the care system, says KP. Does the government plan to fund its pension scheme without draining the reserves and relying on non-government employees paying for national insurance? The article in the Examiner, says Andy, this week is a horror story. Have you read through that? Makes for some interesting reading. Dick says, saying you're away from family for too long is crazy. Try the forces of deep sea. You're away for months at a time, plus being on board for 2 weeks, then off for 14 days is more days off than a 9 to 5 Monday to Friday. You do 5 days, 20 days a month and 8 off. Plus fire and rehire, says Richard, is common. Tim Glover might want to take a look at half of the doctors and nurses when they reach retirement. They come back the next week on the bank, earning a lot more than they did in the same job. Plus, saying the other day, not having the private patients wing a stop private care is wrong. I don't know one consultant who's ever stopped doing private work because the wing is shut. They need the work. How else can they make hundreds of thousands of pounds a year on top of what they make from Manx Care, says Dick. Well, thank you, Dick. I suppose that's an example of the marketplace and the fact that lots of consultants, and it's not just the Isle of Man, it's elsewhere, do private work on top of their Manx Care work. That's just the name of the game. When you quoted Margaret just now, people start up businesses. Sounds like Margaret Thatcher. Well, I don't know. Margaret emailed me that in. People start up businesses, the trickle-down economics. That was her mantra. They didn't really work in an economy of that size. Never mind our small one, says Richie. Well, your opinion, Richie, it seemed to work in the UK, didn't it? Talking of public toilets, the ones on the harbour side in Laxey are disgusting. They haven't been cleaned properly in years. I wonder what does this say to any visitors or holiday makers? We can't be bothered to clean the loos in Laxey. They stink to high heaven, and the hand-washing sink has dirt and grime ingrained on it due to a lack of cleaning. Come on, Laxey commissioners and the DOI, sort out the loos in Laxey. Travelling, it's John on 557, travelling around South America, plastic is dumped in horrific amounts in South America in beautiful countryside. How do we stop that? Good point, John. If it happens elsewhere in the world, is it right that we take responsibility for it? I.e., if it's a problem in South America or in India or China, what can the Isle of Man do about it? What can anybody do about it? What classifies as single-use plastics? Does this include all the microwavable ready meals in plastic containers covered with a plastic foil lid? And just one final thing I want to leave you with. I've got it's more regarding toilets. I think at some point we will move away from the toilets, but it's worth, every time I talk about public toilets, it always gets a response, because the provision of public, clean, available, well-lit, open public conveniences is something that we've come to expect. We have considerably fewer than we used to have, so whose job is it to provide it? And a note in from, this is Olive, who says, I'm part of a company that owns a cafe cum restaurant on the Isle of Man. And people who come from off the street and ask if they can use our loos without buying anything often take offence when we say, no, you have to buy something. We pay rent, we pay rates, we pay staff wages, we buy supplies, we operate a business. We're not here as a public loo for people to just walk in off the street. When will people understand it?
The Ramsey Garden Centre sale is now on, featuring a huge range of garden items at vastly reduced prices. Don't delay. Grab a garden bargain now. There has never been a better time to visit Ramsey Garden Centre. Open 7 days a week on Albert Road, Ramsey.
Oh! Problems with your spine and posture can have a serious effect on your quality of life, but a Line for Life spine clinic could help. If you're suffering from back pain, neck pain, headaches, their holistic scientific approach could find and treat the root cause of the problem for long-lasting relief. Touch A Line for Life now, or call 629 444. A Line for Life, the island's spine and posture clinic, here to make life better.
TGI Fridays, Harry Ramsden's, Greg's, Chiquito. They're each loved for food and enjoyment. And now they've all teamed up with Iceland to bring their famous food direct to you. Piccolino, MyProtein and many more, all in one place. Shop right, so anytime you're craving for what makes them famous, we can help. No defrost, no prep, no waste. Straight from the freezer into the oven. And all at great prices. New exclusive brands. Only at ShopRite. Proudly locally owned.
There's monkeys and meerkats, penguins galore. You can meet with a panda, owls, lemurs and more. Then discover what makes the animals tick. A wild day out that starts with a click.
The Currachs Wildlife Park is a must-visit for all the family. And our online booking system lets you buy annual memberships, book animal experiences, even adopt an animal. Perfect as a gift too. Visit currachswildlifepark.im now to get started.
Go wild at the Currachs Wildlife Park.
Get ready for another winning weekend on Manx Radio.
And this weekend you can win a set of motorbike tyres up to the value of £250 from H&H Motorcycles. The one-stop source for everything bike at hnhmotorcycles.im.
Visit manxradio.com and answer the competition question for your chance to win. You can enter as many times as you like.
Then make sure you're listening to Manx Radio Breakfast on Monday morning when we'll be announcing the winner.
Make this your winning weekend with your nation station, Manx Radio.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
And Tommy. Hi, Tommy.
All right, Andy.
What's on your mind, Tommy?
No, I was just saying the French fellow had the right idea about toilets, and he didn't 2 loos per trek.
Oh, thank you, Tommy.
Thank you very much.
Hey, tell me, where was the nearest public loo to the Kenilworth Hotel?
Where was it? I think it was over by Little Switzerland, I think. Either that or it was down the gardens, by the gardens on Lock Promenade.
Yeah,
so,
I'm trying to think. Just let me write that down again. 2 loos. What was it again?
2 loos. 2 loos per trek.
Oh, very good. Okay.
Yeah, very good.
All right. Thank you, Tommy.
All right, Danny. Cheers, bud.
Good to hear from you at 18 minutes before 1 on Manx Radio. I don't know whether you noted this thing about the Public Accounts Committee. The PAC is the committee responsible for scrutinising government finances. And they say the lack of the publication of unaudited accounts means that scrutiny isn't possible. Now, this may sound pretty dry, but it's really, really important. The PAC does a report, again, scrutinises government finances, looks at the government's homework, if you like. It's published its annual report reflecting on its investigations over the past year. Have a listen.
The PAC has considered a range of issues over the last 12 months, including the future of the Douglas Bay Horse Tramway, spending on the Liverpool landing stage and student awards. The report makes 2 recommendations for change, including a call for an unaudited summary of key financial information to be published no later than 6 months after the end of a financial year. It comes after the committee questioned why government hadn't published its unaudited accounts, also known as the Light Blue Book, since 2021. Or the Orange Book featuring trust accounts and other third-party statements since 2017. Treasury Minister Alex Allinson told the committee compiling the Light Blue Book takes up considerable officer resource, but the PAC says targeted scrutiny without the publication or an equivalent is not possible. The second recommendation relates to government's decision to de-scope the horse trams on Douglas Prom. It was confirmed to the committee's vice-chairperson that the decision to halt plans to continue the tramway to the sea terminal was a collective decision by the Council of Ministers, despite the project having received Tynwald approval in 2017. The committee says the decision not to seek Tynwald approval for this change reflects poorly on the Department of Infrastructure and the Council of Ministers. As a result, the PAC report includes a recommendation for Tynwald to back its calls for a vote to be required in advance of any deviation from previously approved scoping. The committee had been due to report back on its investigation into government's handling of the new Isle of Man ferry terminal in Liverpool in January, but was unable to meet the deadline. It says those findings will be released ahead of a debate at November's sitting of Tynwald. The committee's reports will be laid before Tynwald at the October sitting.
Did you hear that about the horse trams? Well, the PAC, we'll hear more from the PAC as time moves on, but they don't seem terribly happy, do they? People keep going on about bank nurses, but that kind of job has no guarantees of income and pay. Probably includes what would have been a pension contribution, because this kind of work doesn't count towards a pension, the same as supply teachers, says Sue. Not sure if it still applies, but many years ago, I'm sure you could use the toilet in public houses without buying a drink. Not so many pubs these days, of course, says Robbie. If 6 months car tax, it incurs an admin fee. Mine is £79 for the year, but £46, a £6 fee. Is that just for pressing the button? Mentioned this yesterday. You can now get 6 months car tax as opposed to a whole year, but it will pro rata will be slightly more expensive. Your caller talks common sense. Surely the bus terminal and of course the tram terminal should be at the sea terminal. Visitors will then have immediate connection, of course. Historically, an intended connection was planned to go to the steam railway, says John. I've heard talk about this. And it was going to go around on North Quay, wasn't it? The horse trams were going to go around on North Quay. Of course, when 20 odd years ago, when they flooded significantly, I think the people went off the idea. But anyway, regarding the plastic ban, says Dave in Onken, does this include nappy sacks and dog mess bags? If so, I can foresee a health emergency if the island's covered in. And it would be a health issue. Actually, no, I think nappy sacks and dog, are all covered as well. But as we get closer to it, I'm no doubt there's going to be a big furore at the time as to what's going to happen with these single-use plastics. The new model for the Heritage Railway says it's 951 this time, is to cut everything. The horse trams won't go any further than Broadway, says this correspondent. They want this is the Chief Minister, Mr. Cannon, wants the steam railway to only go to Castletown. The electric trams go on to Laxey, then to the Mountain, not to Ramsey. The decision, of course, is down to this Seastra company who've done the research and the report into what's going to happen to our heritage railways. But you may have heard one of the Treasury members earlier on this week, Andrew Smith, behalf MHK, said it'd be nice to see more people on them. So perhaps this is so. If you've got one of those senior citizens cards with free bus travel, I think that gives you half price travel on the heritage railways. Do you think it might be an idea to get more people on board, to give senior citizens, pensioners, if you like, free travel to extend that public transport onto the heritage railways and actually get more people on board? Because remember, lots of retired people have grandchildren, and in the school holidays would take grandchildren on board. Is it better to have people on who possibly aren't paying than to have nobody on board? What's going on with the wallabies, says 600. I have as many pets around my property, but there's been a lot of shooting going on. Is that true? And the wallabies have disappeared. I'm very worried about them. They're friendly. They're easy targets. I'm in Sulby, so if anybody is listening, stop the shooting. Those poor old defenceless wallabies. That can't be true, is it? It's very noticeable during the past few years. People are throwing away masks, made with plastics like latex, in a manner that could only be described as increased widespread littering. This possibly is the COVID masks. If in the future the same happens, would it be prudent to introduce DNA testing of the masks to bring the perpetrators to justice, considering the new plastics legislation? Interesting, Julian. Is a COVID mask, is that single-use plastic?
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
11 minutes before 1, Doug.
Hello, this is Doug Farragher. In conjunction with Manx Radio, I'd like to invite you to join us and learn something about our native Gaelic tongue, the language of man.
Drive smarter, drive more reliable, drive a great deal at Mannin Motors, with a superb range of cars for every budget, always available. And if we don't have it, we'll source it. Plus, servicing, valeting and prestige detailing too. Mannin Motors, Richmond Hill, Douglas. Find us on Facebook or call 420 420. That's 420 420. Drive a better bargain at Mannin Motors.
70 million workdays lost. A cost of up to £99 billion to the UK economy. Can your business afford to ignore mental health? St John Ambulance have partnered with Mental Health First Aid England in a bid to transform workplace mental health and support staff. We are offering adult mental health first aid training courses to encourage early intervention, helping you recognise the signs and symptoms and guide a person to the right support. Call St John Ambulance on 674 387 today.
This is my happy place. Don't we all have a favourite place? A place we come to relax, plan, dream and invest. With HSBC's online investment platform, you can invest in hundreds of funds anywhere and get 50% off upfront investment fees. Invest in what makes you happy from just £50 per month. Terms and conditions apply. Visit us online today. HSBC, opening up a world of opportunity. Investment involves risk. The amount initially invested may not be received back. HSBC Bank PLC Isle of Man branch is regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority. Offer ends 30th of November 2023.
They are here. The new EVF car washes have arrived on the island. Bigger, wider, taller, State-of-the-art machinery made for today's mighty vehicles. Prepare for the ultimate car wash experience. New EVF car washes at Alexander Drive, Douglas and Ramsey.
After another spell on their travels in the last 3 weeks, FC Isle of Man returned to the bowl this weekend with a big task against an old foe. On Saturday, the Ravens welcomed newly promoted and high-flying Wythenshawe FC in the NWCFL Premier Division, with the Island side hoping to improve their recent form. Join me, Rob Pritchard and Sam Palmer for FC Isle of Man versus Wythenshawe FC, taking place this Saturday at 6 p.m. Manx Radio will be providing full live match commentary on our DAB and AM 1368 channels. Live coverage of FC Isle of Man on Manx Radio is supported by Selton, investing in our community.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Busy, lots of messages to get through, but just to reiterate, the Isle of Man single-use plastic ban is 2 weeks next Thursday, the 19th of October. It all comes to happen. Businesses were given 12 months. It was announced about a year ago. Businesses were given 12 months to make the necessary changes before the climate change brackets single-use plastic close brackets regulations 2022 make it illegal to sell or supply single-use plastic straws, carrier bags, cutlery including chopsticks, plates, stirrers, plastic stemmed cotton buds, polystyrene cups and polystyrene food containers for immediate use. Now, this is the ban comes into effect 19th of October this year, 2 weeks next Thursday, applying to personal care products containing microbeads, balloon sticks, and all products made from oxidegradable plastic which don't completely decompose. Some exemptions are made for certain items, including the use of plastic bags for uncooked meat and fish, plastic straws and cotton buds in medical settings, compostable plastic certified to British Standard BS EN 13432 and carrier bags made of woven plastic or a reusable bag of a certain specification. As the regulations come into force, businesses are going to be encouraged to rethink their business practices. They did a survey, maybe you took part in it, 700 people responded, which is quite a lot for the Isle of Man. 90%, 9 out of 10, agreed that the items should be axed. Businesses could also yield cost savings and contribute to combating the climate emergency. So there we are. That's what's happening. 2 weeks next Thursday, a single-use plastics become illegal. I agree with your caller about the loos at Laxey Harbour. They're smelly and lots of stuff is just thrown on the floor, says Derek. The lady on about having a cafe and won't allow people in unless they pay. When you're in Europe, cafes, bars and restaurants all allow non-purchasers to use the loos. Alison says, Andy, the toilets at Nobles Park near the grandstand are disgusting. Heaven knows what visitors think when they have to pay 20p to use a dirty and neglected loo. I wonder whether anybody's asked them what they think about it. Lots of people are there, lots of people use them. And there is a beer tent half the time, isn't there? The large visible rivers of plastic, bottles, containers and bags are a problem which possibly can be dealt with. But microplastics, says Richie, which can hardly be seen, are the real problem. And that's how that's dealt with. I don't really know, except manufacturers should stop using them in the first place. Good point, well made, Richie. And again, quite how we do it is probably above everybody's pay grade. Only the people who are involved in the production of plastic and microplastics will know all about this, and the fact that has been well documented now microplastics are getting into the marine food chain. Tiny organisms are eating and ingesting microplastics and they're feeding through the food chain, and of course eventually we all eat seafood. So where does that go? You mentioned about Manx Care, and I was wondering, with the 12,300 patients on the waiting list, how much of a difference the extra £18 million Manx Care were given by Tynwald towards the waiting initiative has made. As with Manx Care said recently, they're £27 million over the £255 million they were given in this year's budget. All of that adds up to 27 plus 255 and 18 is 300 million, which is worse when you consider the total DHSC for acute and primary the year before Manx Care was 222 million, and they only went 5 million over budget a couple of years ago. That's nearly 80 million above the old DHSC. What happened to Sir Jonathan Michael's report saying Manx Care would break even in a few years if they followed the suggestions in his report? So either the Sir Jonathan Michael report was very wrong or something's gone wrong for them to be 80 plus million pounds worse than the old managers were a couple of years ago. And then you think about the Liverpool landing stage. Well, thank you for that. I thought we got through one show without talking about the Liverpool landing stage, but I appreciate it. Heritage travel used to be free. I used it often, and importantly, I would always eat out. Says Sue, the senior citizen. So what do you think about this? What about the gloves and plastic aprons used by the nurses, says David? Well, I think clinical situations, single-use plastic, will be allowed. I've got a useful stock of carrier bags and will continue to use them, says Ian. My favourite, I'm going to live forever. I've got 110 bags for life. It's an answer. Thanks to Chris Work on the phones. Have a great weekend.
WIN